Oh, yeah. Good morning, Aldo. Morning, Ron. Morning, Ricky. Nice picture. I like your Santa, Ron. I mean, Ricky. Morning, Knox.
Morning.
You always sound so cheery first thing in the morning.
I know, it's great.
Well, if you can get through this week, you got 2 weeks off. Morning, Abel. Morning, Sam. Lots of people. Morning, Sam. Morning, Makiko and Brianna. Morning, Christian. Morning, Andrew. Morning, Kayla. Okay, Sam, I get it. Sam, just a suggestion, because that's actually happened for me too. One thing that you might try, not right now, but between things, is unplug your router and plug it back in. So reboot it. That's actually happened for me. I had real tough time streaming one day. And at the end of the day, I went and did that and all good. So good morning, everybody who's come in the past minute. Good morning, Cass. Who else have I not said good morning to? Good morning, Hannah. Good morning, Courtney. Hope I haven't missed anybody. Morning, Leo. Morning, Noah. Is it? Where's it? Morning, Erica.
Good morning.
I'm going to wait one more minute. As I promised last week, I got one thing to do with you guys today, and then you have an assignment from it, but I'm going to shut up and let you guys do it. And if you're really good, you'd probably be done by the time class is over. Well, it's 8:34 now. Why don't we get started? So, just as a review for what we were looking at last week, I have a question for all of you who are female or female identified. Is this thought really struck me. You know, when I was reading about the cult of domesticity, let me ask you guys a question, and it's a serious question. Even though this is not our popular culture right now, is this a surprise to any of you? I mean, haven't you guys sort of heard that information either overtly or subtly your whole life? All about how a woman is supposed to be, and especially in the domestic sphere. Is this news to you? Okay, Sam says it's not really surprising. Knox says, yeah. Erica, it's not news. Yeah. Okay. I hated it. I'm not.
I was in the church for all of my life. That's what I was fed since I was a little kid. It was
Right.
terrible. That's part of the reasons why I'm trans now. It's not all, but like I hated hearing that as a kid, and I've always pushed back against it.
But see, but that's my point, is that it's not brand new information to you, is it?
Not at all.
So this is the curious way that culture works, and it's really kind of important to understand it. You guys know what osmosis is? It's a scientific term. Okay, I'm going to put that in. You guys know what osmosis is? Anybody? Okay. It is absorption. So if you have a membrane, and on one side you have really, really, really salty water, and on the other side you don't have such salty water, the salt is going to try to migrate through until both sides are balanced. Okay. Anytime you have actually your blood vessels are the same way. Your blood vessels are really, really oxygen rich. You know, these red blood cells going through full of oxygen. And on the other side of that blood cell are muscles that are constantly oxygen needing. And so the oxygen goes through the vessel wall into the muscle, right? And then once it burns the oxygen, it's got all this carbon dioxide and the blood vessels don't have much of the carbon dioxide, so it migrates the other way. So it's the movement of chemical properties back and forth across a membrane. But I use it as a metaphor. My father was an English professor, and he struggled his whole life as my father to teach me grammar because I just didn't get it. Like, what's a prepositional phrase? I struggled. But now I know what a good sentence is. I can't tell you the bits of grammar, but I know what a good sentence is because it just kind of bled from him into me. You know, it's just being around him, right? And that's how culture works. Culture, just being in it. It's the water you swim in, and you're not even aware that you're swimming in that water, but it's all around you. And it's in subtle, tiny little ways, like the advertisements that you get for children's toys and what a girl toy looks like versus what a boy looks like. And you're 5 years old. You don't know these things, but you're getting these signals, and it's a constant. And the grandmothers come in and they communicate in this kind of very subtle way that this is a woman's domain. And then the guys, this is a guy's domain. And nobody has to lecture you on it. It just trickles in from the minute you're born. And it's subtle, but it's pervasive. It's all around you. And so these kinds of messages, especially that cult of domesticity, that it's 150 years old, but it still has not gone away. And in fact, in some ways, it had its heyday in the 1950s. That's only 70 years ago. And I can tell you, my mother hated this. My mother suffered under this. She was not meant to be a domestic wife. And she was a frustrated woman. And so, but this kind of stuff is just, it's always kind of just under awareness. So it struck me as like, I'm reading it to you, it's like, wait a minute, they already know this. But in your bones, maybe not in your head, but in your bones, you know this. So what I want to do today is, my brother knocks propaganda, which is just me telling him that clothes have no gender stuff in his propaganda. He goes, you're the counter friction, Knox. That's good. And welcome to the direction of your life. So what we're going to read today is a letter that was written by a man following a second women's rights conference that happened in Worcester. That's how they pronounce that. It's a city just to the west of Boston in Massachusetts. So there's a second convention. And so a man decided, because of the convention, that he would write the New York Daily Tribune in 1850. And we're going to read this letter. And this is really pure. I mean, this guy, it almost is like, it's almost like he did this intentionally to be as defending the cult of domesticity as much as he possibly could, and hitting all the nails right on the head. So be prepared to find this highly irritating, but this is pure. And this was a widely felt and believed sentiment, and he would have had plenty of people agree with him. So, letter to the editor, Horace Greeley. Mr. Greeley, Esquire, dear sir, I notice that in publishing the proceedings of the mothers of our republic, you refrain from all comment or remarks. I enjoy hearing your opinion and am particularly anxious to know what you really think of this late movement in favor of women's rights. Now, I am at a loss to what the women of the Worcester Convention are aiming at. It is clear that if we are going to live or have any private comforts, there must be dinners cooked, children's faces must be washed, there must be a home to which the mind of the weary husband will turn to bear him up and urge him on in his toils for the inmates of that sanctuary, the sanctuary being home. A home where he can for a time forget, in his wife's and children's society, the toils and troubles of this weary world. A home which he can never leave without carrying with him a new grace, a new strength, drawn from women's influence to enable him victoriously and manfully to withstand the trials and temptations of the world. Now, if women are given the right to vote, to electioneer, to become stateswomen, why, it is incontrovertible truth, that is, if they attend properly to politics, that dinners must go uncooked, the children's faces unwashed, the home be forgotten, unless indeed the men exchange duties with them, as was proposed at the convention, and stay at home and help their wives cook and wash the dishes. So far from thinking women slaves, I do not see how it can appear in such a light to any thinking mind, any true-hearted woman. There is something, catch this, there is something so superior about women that one would make one shrink as from profanation, the idea of her mingling in public with the sterner and worser sex. A spiritualization that raises her far above the intrigues of politicians and the vulgarity of rowdies, a superiority which, if not acknowledged in words, is confessed in actions, even by men who, however degraded they may be, refrain from the slightest word or action that could be commented upon in the presence of women. In other words, men act better in the company of women than they do in the company of men. The woman of the Worcester Convention seem to have entirely overlooked the immense power given to women in the form of home influence. What power can be greater than a mother's holy and elevated example, which has given to the world so many shining lights, than a mother's gentle but impressive remonstrance to a straying son, or a wife's earnest pleadings to a wayward husband? All of which would be of no avail at the moment a woman condescended to become a rowdy senator or intriguing politician. For my part, I look on women as missionary angels, sent among men to remind them of their high calling and high duties. It is not because men think that women have no intellect, etc., that they consider it inexpedient for them to vote. No, it is common sense directs them to this judgment. They know that there are two great duties to be performed in the world: public and domestic duties. And as no one can deny but that men are stronger than women, the former generally choose the more laborious and inferior duties. So the home is superior to the public world. We must also remember that if women gained these absurd rights, they would be obliged to maintain them. And this they have not the strength to do. For which of the women at the Worcester Convention could knock a man down if he chose to stand up? And what man would come forward to protect a woman as long as she claimed to herself the right of self-protection? It would be well enough for the ladies to endeavor to protect themselves if this were practicable. But what rowdy, if he met Miss D so-and-so out on a sick call at 12 o'clock at night, would stand to listen to her explanations of women's rights? I acknowledge there are some gross injustices done to women in regard to property and their very low wages. And if it were to perform such abuses as these at women held conventions, it would be laudable. If it were to reform such abuses as these that women held conventions, it would be laudable. But such injustices seem to take up but a small share of their attention. And strange as it may appear, their ambition seems to aim principally at gaining the right to be just as uninteresting and as bad as men. One of the ladies, Lucretia Mott, outdid even the 19th century when she thought the inspired apostles, the companions of our blessed Savior, might have imbibed some of the ignorance of the age. Truly, we of the 19th century are wondrous wise, or either, I fear, we are imbibing some of the infidelity and self-conceit of this same wonderful age. There can be no fault found with Miss Lucy Stone's desire not to have it placed on her gravestone that she was relict of somebody, as she can easily avoid being the relict of anybody. Relict is a thing that has survived from an earlier period or in a primitive form. That she was relict of somebody means that she was somebody's servant. And she can easily avoid being that of anybody, which is to say, she didn't have to marry. I am sorry, dear sir, to have trespassed so long upon your valuable time, but as I knew that on any subject you are always willing to give both sides a chance, as we Yankees say, I could not refrain from the above remarks. Yours sincerely, A. And what I would do if I was you is I would go through this. I probably would copy it and paste it, and I would make notes. And what I want you to do, you have to write A back through the newspaper. So write a response letter to the editor. Now, I don't know that you guys know this because newspapers have hardly been around in your lifetime, but in days past in the newspaper, there was always a letters to the editor. And it's devolved into the comment section, and the comments in newspapers now or magazines are just absurd. They're not even worth reading. It's where the idiot class comes out. But used to be that there would be, you could follow a debate in the letters to the editor. So what you are to do is you are to write a letter to the editor answering A's letter. And please do not just say, he's full of it, right? Go through the letter and find the points that you find objectionable. And there are probably more than a few. Find the points that you find objectionable or just flat out wrong and respond to those points. You always have, if you're writing anything that's trying to be persuasive, the first thing you do is you acknowledge the points of the other person and then you go after it. Okay, so the author raises many issues. It's a good idea to underline or highlight what you think are the main ones, the main points, cite them in your letter, then refute them or support them, who knows, or support them using logic and reason. You may mix in your personal feelings and experiences, but keep the discussion rational and be as persuasive as you can be and sign your name to it. So, does that make sense? And you guys are all exquisitely equipped to do that. So, does that make sense to you guys?
Makes sense to me.
So, I will show you exactly where you can find this. So, modules. Go down, go down, go down, go down. Oh, letter to the editor. Write a reply. It's right underneath Seneca Falls and right above the Zoom. So write a reply, and that is the letter. And there is, by the way, a PDF copy if you would like one. So it is 10 minutes to 9. Unless you have any questions, I'm going to let you take care of this writing now. I do have something for you on Thursday. It will not be homework. And in fact, it's going to be a little bit unrelated to this, but it's totally related to the holiday, which is coming up. So this is the last content thing I'm giving you before the break. And if you take your time now, you can finish this by the time class is over. You guys good? Any questions?
Any questions?
How long is it supposed to be? Makiko, I never can answer that question precisely. It's as long as you think it needs to be. Look at the points the man makes. Which ones stand out to you? Which ones make you want to stab him with a butcher knife? But don't do that. Do that with a pen or a keyboard. Okay, so point out his faults, point out why he's wrong, and make it as rational and persuasive as possible. But I will say one paragraph won't do it. So I'm going to hang out. You guys can do this. You can be with me. You can say sayonara while I was staying this call. I don't care, Sam. If you have questions, it's a good idea to be here. But if you don't have no questions, you can sign off and just take care of it. Okay. But I'll be here for the remainder.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay, you bet.
Thank you.
You bet. We'll see ya. Hello, baby. Hello, baby. Archer, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right. Good to see you. So here's the deal. Watch the screen. I'm not going to reread it, but I can show you what we did and what you need to do. I have to go to this. Okay, so let me show you in the modules where it is. So down, 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 down. Right here where it says letter to the editor, write a reply. It's right underneath Seneca Falls. So click on that. And this right here. So last class, we looked at the very first Women's Rights Convention in Seneca Falls. This is after a second Women's Rights Convention in Worcester, Massachusetts. And what this is a letter written to the editor of a newspaper in New York, the editor Horace Greeley. And the New York Daily Tribune apparently covered the Women's Rights Convention in Worcester and reported on it. And so this guy wrote a letter to the editor taking issue with the convention. And, you know, if you go to newspapers today, at the end of a story, it'll say comments at the end of it. And don't even bother reading those comments because people, you know, they're not very good. And actually they make you feel bad about humanity. But in days when newspapers are actually published, there would be a letter to the editor section. And you could actually follow an issue by people's responses to the letters to the editor. So this is a letter that this guy wrote in, and it's all talking about the Worcester Convention, but it's a guy writing, and he has a very sort of pure view of how women should be and what women's roles and what men's roles are. And this is 1850, and he's very much defending the situation as it was then. And women's place belongs in the domestic sphere, in the home. And he gives all sorts of reasons for that. And so what I want you to do is read over this. And this is not that difficult to read. This is not like a legal document. So read it over, highlight the places where you think he's either right or wrong. Because you know, I'm not going to tell you what to think. This is for you to decide how you respond to this. And then write a letter back. So what I want you to do is write a response to this letter, letter to the editor. And don't just say, you know, this guy's full of it, or I completely agree, but back it up. So if you disagree, you know, say A, because this person's name is A said this, or A feels this way about something. However, then say what you feel. Or if you think he's totally spot on, says, I am in support of A's comments that blah, blah, blah. But pull out the points, at least the most important ones that you think A makes, and either support them or refute them. Okay, and do that with logic and with reason. So this is a persuasive writing thing. So be as persuasive as you can be, and then sign your name to it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so there you go. And so this is posted on Canvas. So that's what we did today. And like I said last class, this is all I'm going to do for you. And then on Thursday, when I see you guys before the break, I have something else entirely. So there's not going to be any more assignments. So this is the last assignment before the break, and you can do it right now. You still have half an hour even before this class period is over. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So that's it.
Thank you for telling me. Again, I'm sorry I was late.
Yep. That's cool. But you caught me.
Bye.
Okay. We'll see you.